Hi, everyone. Happy Monday, and welcome back to the Quantum Human Design Coach Forum. I'm excited to be here with you today, and we are going to be continuing our conversation around conditioning and looking at the resiliency key of courage and how that resiliency key relates to the spleen center and the fear gates of the spleen. So we're going to start talking today about the gate 50. So last week, just to sum it up, we talked a little bit about fear and the spleen and the instinctual splenic response. We talked a little bit about how sometimes when we experience the instinctual reaction of the spleen center, especially around things that are more existential in nature rather than things that are actually scary, like running from a bear. We experience fear and we let that fear keep us small. We keep that, we let that fear stop us from really moving forward with great courage and precision and trust and faith. And we talked about how sometimes we have to transform that fear into a sense of awe and realize that what's really happening is not something scary, but rather something that's actually going to take us to a better, fuller, more rich expression of the truth of who we are. We looked at that in the context of the gate 48, the gate of depth. We looked at that in the context of the gate 57, this energy that brings this deep intuitive knowingness. We looked at that through the context of the gate 44, the gate of truth. And if you missed any of that conversation, all of those videos are posted below. I also want to let you know that next week on Wednesday evening and Thursday midday, I'm going to be teaching the same class twice, so you don't have to come to both classes. I'm going to be teaching a brand new free webinar about deconditioning by design. What do you need to do to get underneath your conditioning to get to the root of why perhaps you're not fulfilling your full purpose? You're perhaps holding yourself back from doing those things that your heart and your soul and your spirit long to do. We're going to be talking about how those underneath drivers sometimes create things like procrastination or a disruption in the flow of your prosperity, or sometimes they play interesting games and can make things dicey in your relationship. So we're going to be talking about how can you decondition yourself at the core of your being so that you can really take bold and courageous and pattern disrupting steps towards fulfilling the true story of who you really are. Today's conversation is a conversation about the gate 50. So the gate 50, if you're looking at your chart, comes off the point of the spleen center. And I want to just remind you as we go through these gates that even if you don't have this this gate defined in your chart, you still have this gate. We all have all of the archetypes in the chart. Just like we all have the entire human genome in ourselves, we all have the entirety of the human potential contained within us. But we're all hardwired to explore or activate those potentials differently. And the things that are colored in on your chart are part of your soul curriculum, if you will, what you're here to learn in this lifetime. And the things that are open are things that you're here to learn from through your relationships. So there's a lot of variability in the things in your chart that are white. So you might have experiences of those themes in a lot of different ways. In the things that are colored in for you, the things that are defined in your chart, those are themes that you're going to find repeat themselves over and over and over again in your course of your life. And those are the things that you're really here to become an expert in, that you're really here to learn about for your own sake, your own growth, your own expansion. So let's talk about the gate 50. And I will say that this is a gate that I personally have defined in my chart, so I know this one really, really well. This is a gate that oftentimes represents traditionally what I might call mama energy. So I don't want to label it as masculine, feminine. I do want to label it as mama energy. And it is nurturing and kindness and caring and giving. And oftentimes it involves cooking. You'll find that people who have this defined in their chart, to them cooking is often a huge act of love. So in my house, I fix a home-cooked meal every night, unless we order for Grubhub once in a while. And that meal that I prepare is this giant loving thing that I do. I love to do it every day. I look forward to it. I plan what I'm going to cook with great deliberation. all throughout the day. And I really I feel like I've done my job in the world right and correct if my family loves my cooking. So it's the Jewish mama gate, or for some of you it might be the Catholic mama gate, because I know it's the mama archetype that always cooks, right? That lives in the energy of this gate 50. Now, all of the gates of the spleen center are oftentimes associated with different potential fears. So, the gate 50 is oftentimes associated with a fear of failing the people you love, a fear of letting other people down, a fear of, really making sure, really feeling like if you don't fulfill your obligations of caring for others, that somehow you've failed as a human being. Now, the high expression of this gate 50 is the intuitive knowing, that the intuitive awareness to know what people need and when they need it. So, to a certain degree, your intuition or your instinct with this gate 50 is being able to anticipate ahead of time somebody else's needs and feeling guilty if you can't meet those needs. And that's the kicker. So, this is definitely one of the places in the chart where guilt lives. And certainly, if you feel like you're failing your responsibilities or your obligations or your ability to take care of the people you love, people who have this defined as a theme in their chart can oftentimes really feel a lot of guilt about failing at taking care of others. And that guilt sets us up for feeling guilty if we choose to pursue something else that we would rather do personally than sacrificing ourselves for the people we love. So oftentimes the learning with this gate 50 is learning to set good boundaries, learning to disentangle yourself from codependent relationship patterns that sometimes cause you to be the one who anticipates ahead of time everything that everybody else needs, and who is oftentimes anticipating that need before the other person even knows that they have a need. So oftentimes the challenge when you have this gate defined is learning how to let go, learning to give to other people the freedom to make their own mistakes, the freedom to figure out how they can better take care of themselves without you facilitating it for everybody. So, one of the biggest things I encourage people who have this gate defined to ask themselves is to really get clear as to whose problem is it? Whose problem is it? Oftentimes, when you have the gate 50, because you can intuitively predict what other people need before they even know they need it, and it creates these sort of weird codependent psychic patterns. Learning how to hold people accountable and responsible for their own life, for their own happiness, for their own choices, and learning how to let go, even though part of you is like, I know what's going to happen. And you have this sort of, fear that you're going to witness a train wreck that somebody's going to have, that's, and it's somebody who you really, really, really love, and you don't want them to ever have any pain and suffering in their life at all. Learning to take a big enough step back to say, perhaps the biggest gift we can give the people we love sometimes is to let them fall. Because if we're constantly running around with the big cushion and making sure that every time they land there's a soft space, they don't get to experience that matrix, if you will, that oftentimes can facilitate for them their growth and expansion. So there's a courage in the gate 50 that's a little bit different than some of the other gates, and it's the courage to let go, the courage to hold a vision that whatever it is you're releasing to somebody else who you love dearly, that even if they fall, that they're going to be okay. To hold space for them, even if the journey to get to where they could be is bumpy. And to not buy into the idea that you have to rescue them to keep them safe. That it's really up to them to figure it out. And I'll say personally, as I said, with somebody who has this defined and somebody who has 8 children, it is a hard lesson to be able to love your people, the people you love, enough to let them have their own mistakes, to let them have their own failures, to let them own the lessons that they glean from their own challenges, and not to want to rescue them. you will want to rescue them. You will. You'll have to keep yourself locked up so that you don't. You'll want to rescue them, but you know you can't. Because if you do that, you'll rob them of the experience of learning for themselves. And if they don't learn for themselves, then they don't integrate it. And then they have a tendency to repeat the same mistake again and again and again. And you can't keep rescuing them. It's up to them to figure it out. So that's a really hard thing to do. It's a really deep sense of courage that you have to cultivate. The second thing that sometimes takes courage to do when you have this gate defined is to have the courage or cultivate the courage or find the courage to follow your own directive. It is very easy with this energy to give up what you need and want for others. And sometimes when the toll gets too high, when the self-denial has been going on for too long, and you put yourself so far on the back burner that you don't have access to the fire anymore, sometimes in order for you to better take care of others, you have to follow your own direction, your own path first. And so if you're not doing that for yourself first, then you run the risk of burning yourself out and not being available to continue to give in a sustainable way. So the courage, again, with the 50 is learning to let go and learning to do what you need first in order for you to better facilitate whatever it is you want to give and share with others. That's it. That's our Gate 50 for today. Tomorrow, we're going to be exploring the Gate 32 and the courage to fail, or the courage to wait, depending on how you look at it. And I hope you have a great day. Again, don't forget, scroll down, sign up for the free course next week, Wednesday night or Thursday in the afternoon. Deconditioning by design. We're going to be talking about what's the root of pain. How do we get to the root of pain? And how do we create permanent changes on multiple levels of our energy field, our bodies, our minds, our spirits, so that the changes that we make stick and endure, so that the changes that we make are lasting. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you guys have a great week. I will talk to you soon.